All right,
Actually, one
welcome
of my
back
first
to another
questions. Okay.
episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Giggle McGiggle Pants over here, Kathy Cannon, aka Cannon's Fodder. We are waiting on some big news from the DeSantis campaign. Nothing
Big
confirmed
news
yet.
on Tiny D, babe. Big news on Tiny D.
Big big news on little D. We're getting some word. Just, essentially, it's just it's not looking good. Nothing's official yet, but it is. We're recording this Sunday. As of yesterday, the Ron DeSantis communications shop had shut down. Nothing was going on in South Carolina or New Hampshire in terms of DeSantis events canceled. Usually, when a campaign is shutting down their comms shop, it means they're about to. That's usually the telltale sign that everything's about to shut down. So I am
When you sell
praying
your
for
stock,
some.
man.
I'm not. I am praying for some big DeSantis news in the middle of this recording. I've got my breaking news thing in front of me here, so we shall
Yeah,
see.
fancy newsman has breaking news things now. Look at him go.
It's just a text thread with people that know a lot more than I do.
Like me.
So what's
Sorry,
that?
that was an easy joke. I had to take that.
I didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
I said like me, a text thread, people who know more than you. I'm like me.
Yeah. My breaking news is just my thread with Kathy. Kathy's gonna text me the breaking news instead of just telling me on the show. Speaking of little D, so Trump has syphilis. I think. I don't know. It's it doesn't look good. His skin doesn't
Oh
look good.
boy.
DeSantis's campaign doesn't look good. Trump's hands don't look good. I'm gonna put up the picture here on the screen for the viewing audience. What in
All
God's
right.
name is on Trump's hand here?
Kathy
This was
has.
not on it. Now, to be clear, we have video comparisons of like the day before this, and there was nothing on his hands. And then he shows up with this. Somebody said it was frostbite. He had just been in Iowa. Somebody said it was like golfer's rash. I think it was Alex Jones who said it was golfer's rash. But again, it was like the only thing he'd done in between the first picture and the second picture was travel on his plane. So he may have I don't know. Does he have like a putting green on his airplane? He may. Who knows? That's some serious golfer's rash, though. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not golfer's rash. I can tell you that. You know what I think it is?
What do you think it is?
And keep in mind, Kathy grew up in South Florida in the 90s. And that man has been smoking a pipe. Okay? Like
a pipe?
Like a pipe, like a
like
crack
a corn cob pipe?
Right, yeah. So I want you to think about those of us who were delinquents in high school and smoked a lot of pot. You know, like you think about a little Pyrex pipe, right? Well, they have similar ones that they use for smoking other things that you hold like by the glass dome, and they can get hot. If you hold them wrong, you're basically holding burning drugs, right?
Okay.
And tell me that doesn't look like he was holding a pipe that was burning.
So you're saying like a crack pipe, not like a old
so
man
like
pipe?
because the one on his thumb, because you have to like hold the little like thing on the side to hold the smoke in with your thumb, right? So then your finger would curl under the bowl, right? And then it would rest right on that part. So to me, it looks like he was smoking a crack pipe.
Are you suggesting that Donald Trump is on drugs? Because I think that would solve a lot of our problems if Donald Trump was on drugs. I think he's not doing enough drugs.
If it's not syphilis, it's that. Or he like alternatively, he like pinched a fucking flat iron. Like he was like curling his hair with a curling iron. Like he might have like, that's the other thing he could have done is like grab the curling iron. But
I think he has syphilis, and so does the eminent James Carville, who I never agree with ever because I think he's a fossil who had one successful campaign ever, and somehow he's like the god of Democratic Party politics. But James Carville said that he said, "quote They look like sores," and I asked a number of MDs what medical condition manifests itself. He did not talk to a number of MDs. He's so full of shit.
He did not.
I talked to a number of MDs what medical condition manifests itself through hands sores, and the answer is immediate and unanimous secondary syphilis. All right, I think there's a good chance this man has the clap, and I'm not being particularly secretive about it.
Also, I thought the clap was chlamydia, so I'm confused.
I think the clap is chlamydia. I don't think the clap is syphilis.
I think the clap is chlamydia.
Yeah, I think he's wrong about that, but it's still funny. I just love when we say the clap. I think that's so funny. Trump's got that clap.
Actually, that actually could
Everybody
make
clap your hands.
sense as well.
What, syphilis or
Because
chlamydia?
yeah, no, not syphilis, right? Because untreated syphilis does create psychosis.
Yeah, it does.
Um, One of my first lessons when I used to teach AP Euro was to tell them how zombie folklore was born out of medieval or Renaissance France when untreated syphilis showed up in the shores from like all of
Okay.
the ports and the trade cities, right? And that syphilis left untreated creates sores on your hands that like basically eat your skin
Right.
and then will start, infecting your brain and making you go crazy, making you kind of slurred speech, unable to like whatever. And then you're basically a living zombie with all these
Everything that
sores
Trump's
and
got.
stuff. Yeah. And I was going to say that explains a lot. And also just sort of like being a lunatic, like the King of France, the one that was married to Catherine de Medici. I can't think of
Yeah.
her name.
Yeah, it makes you nuts.
But he was insane and he died of syphilis, right?
Right.
He was like famously treated for it with like one of those not an iron lung, but like the medieval version thereof or whatever. Not medieval, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
What was his name? Henry II of France, right? So like if he had untreated syphilis, he could be essentially the Mad King because Henry yeah. So
Did,
died
did
because he
George,
took
did George the Third have
like
syphilis? No, George the Third had some kind of like just ocular condition, but George the Third did have a some
he
mental
had
condition as well. I'm not sure if I don't think he had
well,
syphilis though.
he was the king of England and inbred. I think he had cataracts,
Yeah,
and
he
that's
was
why
king of
John
England. He was
Hancock
inbred.
signed
That was his condition.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically. But that's why John Hancock signed his name so big, so he could see it without his spectacles. But yeah, like Henry II of France lost his fucking mind and then ended up dying in a joust because, like, despite being an old man and ill and sick, he decided to like participate in a joust. And I'm pretty sure he took like something to the eye, and that's what killed him.
Henry II he was a Norman king, right?
Of
He was
France.
like of France. Oh, France. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
France. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was French.
Fucking French.
But he married Catherine de Medici, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay. I got it. The other thing is that Trump is obsessed with Al Capone. Like Al Capone is like his hero, and Al Capone died of syphilis. So it's interesting.
It's almost as though money and power will eventually make your brain rot of venereal disease.
Did you see the picture of him after after his mother-in-law's funeral? Like Melania told him not to get in her car. They had to take separate cars.
That must have like if he wasn't such a monster, I'd have been like, ouch.
She can't stand him. It's so clear.
Oh, and I know. Also, like Barron was there, right? And first, he is tall. Like that is
he's like 7 feet tall. He's nuts.
Yeah, he's really, really tall. But what was telling or interesting about that is how small Donald Trump looks next to him. And I don't know if you remember months ago, there was like that story about how he hates getting photographed with Barron because he's so tall or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's looking increasingly disheveled. He's looking increasingly frail, right? And then standing next to his young, tall, strapping, like pretty good looking kid. Like he's a good looking kid. And Donald Trump just looks
model.
Like, yeah. I know, but he does look a lot like his dad when he was younger, but like
he's getting Melania's genes, not Trump's genes. So
like he's
all the kids got their mother's genes. Like all the kids were blessedly got their mother's. Like none of the kids look like Donald. They all look like their mother.
Yeah, that's gracious of the universe, I suppose.
Exactly.
But yeah, like there's that picture where it's like Barron. I think he's like on the end or Trump's in the middle. I don't know, but he looks like a small version.
Trump is like 6'3" or 6'4", but Barron is like 7 feet tall. So yeah, like
yeah, crazy. I know, but like politics is optics, and the optics of that picture is this beautiful skinny wife, this tall strapping young man, and this frumpy disheveled old man.
I think he's going to tap Ron DeSantis to be his VP just so they can stand next to each other all the time because DeSantis is like 5'6".
He's not
just make just make Trump look huge constantly. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, Melania is becoming this like respectable person all of a sudden. Like she went to the Carter funeral for Rosalind Carter. She went to some other event as like a dignitary. Now she's like, she's become like the matriarch of the family. There's that picture of them like all gathering around after the funeral, all gathering around Melania, like Trump's way off to the side. And then she like won't take, she won't let her in her car. I don't know. Just Interesting.
Again,
Interesting stuff.
she may be the matriarch of the family, but so too was Catherine de Medici, famous for St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. So, like,
Yeah.
it's a low
Yeah.
bar for her to hit, I guess.
Plus, Ivanka and Melania still can't stand each other. But Ivanka's kind of out of the picture anyway. Ivanka's kind of doing her own thing now.
Yeah, the way she cut and run from her family was glorious to
Oh yeah.
watch. Whew.
Iowa Caucus. Let's talk some caucus. So we had
I love
the Iowa
talking caucus.
Caucus last week, last Monday. So really snowy, cold, terrible turnout for the Iowa Caucus, and I guess the turnout is never great. I guess for the Iowa Caucus because it's a very involved process. You're there
It's also
all
just a
day.
weird process. Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit on the last show. What it is to caucus. Basically, you show up at your like little community center polling place, and you have to actually physically get you have to physically get in your candidate's corner. People will try to convince people to switch sides. It's a whole sort of game of Red Rover and Four Corners, and they have to do that. Every precinct has to do that until they've decided who their candidate is. So it takes a while. It takes like all night. This one turned out incredibly low, but I don't know if you know, Kathy, but apparently the Iowa caucus victory for Trump was apparently the greatest election victory of all time. We should just cancel the election. It's officially over. Trump wins Iowa, so Joe Biden should just hand him the presidency. It's all over. It was so good. The Iowa victory for Trump caused the stock market to explode. It caused the Chinese stock market to crash. Candidates are dropping out. The race is just over because of this one primary in a tiny, 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 very ruby red state. Apparently, the election is over now.
It's funny how they actually believe these things. But Troy, I'll ask you, when was the last time an Iowa caucus candidate, like you win the Iowa caucus and then win the presidency? When was the last time that one happened?
Obama
I
in
think so, in
08.
08, right?
Obama
That was it.
won
Iowa.
Iowa. That's why Obama loves Iowa so much, because he was sort of
Yeah.
like Iowa gave Obama legitimacy in that
Yeah.
race because he won Iowa, and he still talks about that. Iowa is like his favorite state kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, other
it's
than that,
rare. Like,
not since 08.
yeah.
Ted Cruz won in 16. Who won in 2012 with the Republicans? I don't remember. Was it Huckabee? I don't remember.
Let me go look.
Anyways, Ted Cruz won in 16. Pete Buttigieg, I don't know if anybody remembers, but Pete Buttigieg won the Iowa caucus in 2020.
Yeah.
So really no indicator of what the final result is going to be, but especially on the Republican side. I mean, this is
I was
just
going to say, especially on the Republican
like
side.
it's a tiny, tiny state. In the turnout, okay, bad weather, get it, but there's always bad weather. They hold their caucus in Iowa in January. There's always bad weather. They had a 15% turnout. Okay. There are 752,000 registered Republicans in the state of Iowa. They had a voter turnout of 108,000. So it's 15% of registered Republicans. Remember, there's no Democrats. It's a Republican primary. So 108,000 Republicans, 15% of the registered Republicans. Trump got 56,000 votes. So Trump got half. So Trump got half. He got 50% of the turnout. 50% went to other candidates. But Trump got 56,000 votes, 7.4%. If you factor in the entire eligible Republican vote in Iowa, Trump got 7.4% of the Republicans in Iowa. And you had, again, the Iowa caucus is very, you have to be committed, and especially with that weather. So this should have been the base, the hardcore base, the MAGA of the MAGA extreme, and Trump could only pull off 50%. I think it's incredible. I don't know. You may disagree with me. I mean, he did win a substantial portion of the people that showed up. I think it's a pretty underwhelming victory for Donald Trump. I think he should have gotten 80% of that base vote, 70%. To have the base, to win only 50% of the base, I think is pretty bad showing for Donald Trump in Iowa.
Well, especially for an essential like incumbent Republican, because that's what you have to kind of look at this from, right? Like, it's not just another Republican challenger. Like, if this was 2016 and he had won by those margins in Iowa, he would have some talking to do. He'd have some bragging to do. But like, For example, as an incumbent, like in Iowa in 2012, like you asked, Obama won with 98% of the vote.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. The
and
incumbents
it
just
was
cleaned up.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah, like, so if he is essentially an incumbent, if he was as popular in the Republican Party as he thinks he is, he wouldn't have had challengers, right?
right.
And I've kind of said this
Yeah,
a lot. Like, the reason the Republican Party is in trouble is because of how many Republicans are running for office. You saw
right,
that a little bit in 2022. There was a lot of concern in my world about how likely the Democrats were to be able to take down Trump because of all of the Democrats running. That was the first sign, I think, of the party establishment taking seriously that they had a messaging problem, like taking
right.
seriously that they're not talking to voters correctly. They coalesced around Biden, I think, probably because he was the best bridge they saw between old Democrat and new Democrat. But like, if Republicans were really committed to Trumpism, the way Trump supporters want you to think they are, they would have coalesced behind
Yeah,
Trump more than they have, and they haven't.
he would be the heir
And
apparent.
like,
Like yeah.
yeah, if you're the supposed heir apparent, you're not getting 50% of the vote, right?
In
Like, if you're the
Iowa,
supposed heir apparent in Iowa, no less, right? Because what did he win Iowa by in 2020? Like, that would
in
be
the
the real
general,
question. Like, yeah, like if he didn't win Iowa with the same number of votes that he did in the
yeah,
general, or the same threshold or whatever, like, no, no, like it's not.
he
It's
got.
it's
I was actually closer than I thought. He got so the percentage wise, Trump got 53% to Biden's 44%.
and in the
Um,
he got what, 50.9, I think, like just over 50%
he got
this time around.
53.9. Biden got 44.9. So still he cleaned up. But yeah, I mean, this is the reddest of the red. I mean, if you're talking about base Republican
Mhm.
voters, which is what this caucus is, which is why the
Right.
Iowa caucus is different for Republicans than it is for Democrats, and why it was stupid for Democrats to have their first primary in Iowa is that Iowa's a conservative state. So I mean, you're going to push the Iowa caucus is going to push all those Republicans
Mhm.
candidates. It's going to push everybody to the right. It's going to push the Republican
It's
candidates
gonna
to the
push
right to
everyone
win
to the
Iowa.
right.
It's
Mhm.
going to push the Democrats to the center to win Iowa.
Mhm.
And I think, to be fair, I think there are sort of like some like kooky Iowa leftists, but for the vast majority of the Iowa Democrat is going to be a more moderate Democrat. So
Right,
it's
there's a pragmatism to Iowa voters is what you
yeah,
figure out, and that's what was appealing about Obama, because even though he was a different candidate, to them, he was a different Democrat because he wasn't
right,
Hillary Clinton, right? And he was like, they
right.
were like, "Oh, this is refreshing." And in a world where they needed to consider a Democrat because Republicans had shat the bed so effectively, he was a good option, right? So,
That was port.
I don't know.
That was the port. Was the prediction of the future that Obama was going to be a very very strong candidate because you had those Iowa
Mhm,
sort of Iowa moderates, and that trend really carried through. And then again, you pointed out that
mhm,
Obama won Iowa in the general twice. So it's
mhm.
an interesting state. I think they
Yeah.
thought that he was going to be like they want like a different type of candidate than just like a traditional
Well,
Democrat.
also, like, Iowa loves the retail politics, and that is why DeSantis failed so gloriously there and Obama succeeded so well there, is because Obama is good with the people. Like, you put him in a room
Yeah,
with people, and he is delightfully charming. You put
well, Obama's
DeSantis in a
just
room with people.
Obama's just the best. I mean, Obama's a once in a generation. I mean, Obama's the best
Mhm.
presidential candidate we've seen in our lives. I mean, he was
Yeah,
better
he
than
was
Clinton, and
fucking remarkable.
Clinton could knock it out of the park in terms of charisma.
Yeah,
So,
and I think what DeSantis had been trying to do in Iowa was what, Obama did. Spend fucking all your time in Iowa, right? Like, leading up to it,
yeah,
get to know the people and get them on your side, make some noise and ride the momentum. The difference is Obama has a personality.
yeah. The difference is Obama's good and DeSantis is categorically not good. He's
I
very
know.
bad.
Oh, I know. Oh, I've been loving watching the DeSantis train burn. I know that's, like, further in the headline, but I'm just or in the outline, but I'm so excited to talk about it crashing and
Yeah,
burning.
yeah. I don't know. It's too late to save your insurance, though. I guess your home insurance.
Oh,
Um. But anyway,
consolation prizes.
the but anyway, back to the Republican base voter that's going to show up in a blizzard to caucus for 3
Yeah.
hours. By all rights, those should have just been MAGA hardcore Trump people. And the fact that you had 20% roughly for DeSantis, 20% for Haley, and then like 8% for Vivek, and then the rest. So you had other people. Now Vivek's people will go to Trump. I don't know. What do you think about DeSantis's people? I think a chunk of DeSantis's people are going to go to Trump too. Haley's people, different story. I don't think Haley's people are going to Trump. In fact, there was a poll that said like the vast majority of Haley voters would back Biden.
I know, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. What do
I
you think
think
about the DeSantis crowd?
Voters. There's two groups of DeSantis voters, remember, because this is partly why his campaign fell apart, is because at first he was supposed to be the darling of the billionaire class. Remember, he had all the big money behind him. He had Ken Griffin backing him, and Heritage, right? We're like all on board with Ronnie D. They were throwing money at his super PAC, right? He was
because he looked like he was the only one that could reasonably beat Trump back in the day. Everybody was excited.
Right. Well, remember, he was literally ahead in the polls at one point, and people like here in Florida were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's going to be president." And I remember telling them, like, "No, just wait till people meet him." Right? Remember, I said that like a year ago, like, wait till people. It's going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
I can't believe more people didn't see that coming. I can't believe everybody in Florida was like, "Wait till you get a load of this guy," because man, he's just terrible.
Like your ability to win over a state full of Florida men, not quite the flex you think it is. But so all of the big money people went behind him, and he was originally sold as like Trump light, right? Like Trump without the drama. But it became very clear that Republicans like the Trump drama more than they like the Trump policies. They don't even know the Trump policies. They like the Trump drama.
He doesn't have policies. All he has is drama.
Right. They like being able to freely be an asshole. That's what they like about Trump. So the idea of draconian policies without being a dick, that wasn't appealing. So DeSantis had to kind of double down on being a dick. So now he's trying to play both sides of this. I'm like the pragmatic, tame billionaire one, but I'm also fighting with fucking Mickey Mouse and drag queens, right? It's like whilst my state burns. So like the people who love him for his woke culture warriors, they'll go to Trump. The people that thought he was the only hope of pulling the Republican Party back to some like world of credibility, they won't go to Trump. They'll go to, I don't know, RFK. I don't fucking know. And
I don't think RFK's got much of a coalition.
Yeah, that's fair. And like, to be fair, even some of them could go to Biden because at the end of the day, most of them are concerned with their stock portfolios and the stock market's not doing badly. So like, would they have gotten lower taxes and like more grifty opportunities from Ron DeSantis? Absolutely. But if their choice is dictator Trump or the S&P all-time high Biden, a lot of those guys will probably never admit out loud that they vote for Biden, but put them in the voting booth and they just that
is true. As their portfolios get healthier and healthier, Biden's going to look like a better option. Boy, I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, they might not like all of the diversity education they have to pay for, but they'll like those stock dividends, and the two might balance each other out by November.
Rich people are going to rich. That's what they want.
People are going to rich. They'll like the increase in sales they get when millennials aren't paying student loans and have a couple $100 to burn as well.
Yeah, another like $5 billion forgiven by Biden.
Unless
this week.
They're me and their car broke and their home insurance. Yeah, except me. Like I thought I was there.
Your car, your home insurance doubles thanks to Ronnie D. But we've talked about this before on this show. DeSantis's big mistake was that he tried to out Trump. He tried to go to the right of Trump. He had a coalition of the Republicans that didn't want Trump. He had all of them. Mm-hmm. And like you said, and they had money and they were shopping for a candidate that could beat Trump. Mm-hmm. He should have done what Nikki Haley is doing, and Nikki Haley's numbers play this out. And the fact that she's the real contender to Donald Trump now, I still don't think she's going to win, but she's the real contender to Donald Trump. He should have pulled in the moderate coalition, the actual silent majority, the people that can't stand Trump, but are the conservatives that can't stand Trump. Maybe get some moderate Democrats in there that were kind of tired of Biden. He should have played to the middle. He could have been the sound, reasonable, sensible candidate of, stability to Donald Trump's craziness. Instead, he decided to declare war on Disney and wokeness and tried to just out Trump. And I think you're never gonna out Trump. Like Trump is
Yeah.
Trump. Like you said, Trump's people love Trump for being Trump. Like you're not gonna try. They're not gonna go to DeSantis because he says woke 70,000 times in a sentence and thinks CRT is the biggest issue that we face as a people.
Right? Like he is so painful to listen to because like we've all like worked on, I don't know if I've worked on campaigns. There's some level of repetitiveness in the stump speeches when you're campaigning, but like his are so exactly the same. You know, there's always
Right.
some ad-libbing, there's always like you say the same message. There are certain canned lines that you always pepper in there, but there's some improvisation generally. There is no
Right.
improvisation with John. He just, and you can tell that even he gets bored listening to himself.
Right.
He drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was a little bit of a tangent I just had to rant about because he's such a bad candidate. He's
terrible.
such a bad candidate.
He's also just bad. He's also bad tactically. He and his wife micromanage every aspect of the campaign. They can't even send out like a email without Ron's approval, and just the whole staff just gets bogged down in
he has no
bureaucracy.
Personality.
Yeah,
and a control freak with no personality. That is a bad combination, I think.
He was winning when people thought that he could present the conservative vision for America in a sound, stable, sane way. That was what was going to get the Republican Party past Trump, and instead he just doubled down on the crazy. And if people don't need to look elsewhere for crazy, they have Trump.
There's plenty of that.
So New Hampshire next. So this morning, so Haley said something about Trump's mental decline this morning. I have this video.
Yeah.
So Trump's been having these rallies in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is probably the most conservative blue state. Do you know a lot about New Hampshire politics? Anything about New Hampshire politics?
New Hampshire politics, how I teach it to the kids is it is the most conservative of the northeastern states.
Yeah.
So New Hampshire and Maine, like that one district in Maine, because you know how they split their votes. So what that does is it kind of tells Democrats how moderate they can go and not lose their base. And it tells Republicans how crazy they can go and not lose their base. Does that kind of make sense? Like it tells Republicans how far right they can go, and it tells that like it's the price ceiling, I guess.
Okay,
of
I got you.
Looney Tune, if you will. So that's kind of how they function, right? Like New Hampshire tells Democrats how to win Republicans, and it tells Republicans how crazy they can get away with being.
Okay,
that makes sense.
It's a good bellwether.
So
yeah,
that's kind of and yeah, Ronnie is not going to do like Ron DeSantis will not do well in New Hampshire.
I don't even think he's campaigned there. He went right to South Carolina.
I don't think he has either. But what's baffling about it is that Donald Trump shouldn't do well in New Hampshire either. But I think what's happened there is that, remember how I said like he's popular in the Republican Party, but that's because he's fleeced the Republican Party of anyone left that would dislike him, right? Like they've all kind of left. And I think that is very true in New Hampshire. Right. Like the Republicans left in New Hampshire are the wackiest of them. Like the reasonable ones probably aren't there anymore, if that makes sense.
Well, the New Hampshire, by all rights, is a Nikki Haley type of Republican state, which is why she spent so much time there. It's Nikki Haley has a much better opportunity to take a sizable chunk of New Hampshire than she did in Iowa, or even that she really does in South Carolina, to be honest with you, which is kind of sad because that's her state. And even you see that with Tim Scott, and that Tim Scott endorsing Trump, even though he's from Nikki Haley's state. So Haley really has to pull off a good showing in New Hampshire. Trump knows that. Trump knows that he's really got to hit. If he wants to knock Haley out, he's really got to just thump her in New Hampshire.
Which is why or die for Haley right now.
Yeah, which is why he's going after Nikki Haley, but apparently he thinks that Nikki Haley was the Speaker of the House on January 6th.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, you know, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything? Deleted and destroyed all of it. All of it.
It's online.
Because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people.
Crowd dead silent.
He's lost his mind. And I don't know how people cannot acknowledge that right now. Like, how many times did he say her name in that little second? Nikki Haley, like, you could see him trying to find what he was trying to say. You could see him lose his train of thought in real time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's so bad.
Saying Nikki Haley was speaker, confusing Nikki Haley with Nancy Pelosi. And then there's this. This is word salad.
But we're also going to place strong protections to stop banks and regulators from trying to debank you from your political beliefs. What they do, they want to debank you, and we're going to debank. Think of this. They want to take away your rights. They want to take away your country. The things you're doing, all electric cars. Give me a break. If you want an electric car, good. But they don't go far. They're very expensive. They're going to be made.
What the fuck is he talking about? I don't know.
That I saw that one earlier, and I was like, it's half of three thoughts smushed together in a melting brain.
He's not well. It's the syphilis. It's affecting his brain. I don't know. It's something. He's tired. He's old. He's losing it.
Never not amaze me how people still take him seriously. Like, how they can watch that speech and say that Biden's the one losing his mind. Like, I'm not saying Biden hasn't lost a step over the years, but he knows who Nikki Haley is.
Biden's just not a good public speaker. I mean, Biden delivers a fine speech when he's fired up and he's given one of these, like, you know, we are the United States of America. There's nothing we can't do. Like those kind of speeches. Biden sounds fine. It's when he gets into his like whisper mode and he's like, well, my daddy told me that one day, Joey, you got to fucking that's when he sounds like he's losing it. But Biden gives a fine speech. He doesn't, you know, he's just not a good public speaker. He's not mentally, he doesn't have the mental decline that Trump is exhibiting at this point.
Like, to me, that whisper move is him like aiming for dramatic effect and not hitting it.
Like, he just can't do it. And at this point, you chalk it up to his people telling him to stop, and he just he's just, you know, he's 81 years old. He's been in politics for half a century. He's not taking anyone's advice now. He's going to do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, where he's strong is what's important. Like, you put him, I saw that he went to Raleigh, North Carolina, and he like went to somebody's living room and sat and had cookout burgers and shakes. And to be fair, like, if you're in Raleigh and you're eating cookout burgers and shakes, you're doing politics, right?
Yeah.
But he was sitting down with like a young family, and they were talking about how the student loan forgiveness basically saved their asses. And like, that's where Biden shines. And that's, I think, what almost worried me in 2020, because that kind of politics is what he's good at, and that's what he couldn't do in 2020.
Right.
And he still pulled it out. Right. So I feel like perhaps if the obstacles he has to overcome in 2024 are he's too old for the job, and you see him popping into people's living rooms, that'll solve that one. I don't know. I'm worried, but I'm also hopeful because of, you know, I need to be, because I'll lose my mind if I'm not.
It's just, a lot of it is also misinformation and disinformation. They what they do is they take Biden's strengths and make them weaknesses, like his retail politics and his age. Trump is guilty of all the same things that Biden is guilty of in terms of like his, you know, his campaign style, but they make it a strength for Trump and a weakness. But a lot of it is also just disinformation. Like there was this moment in a coffee shop in Philadelphia, I think it was Philadelphia anyway, in Pennsylvania. And Biden was there with Governor Shapiro and Senator Bob Casey. And he walks, did you see this video? He walks in the coffee shop with the two of them, and it's a cell phone camera like on the other side of the room. So you kind of can't really see him. You see him walk in, but they're far away. You kind of, the words are a little jumbled. But what he's saying, he walks in and he cracks a joke with the baristas. He's like, my name is Joe Biden. I work for the governor and the senator. And he was talking about Governor Shapiro and Senator Casey. He was making a joke. And it's clearly a joke because everyone in the fucking coffee shop busts up laughing, you know, not like in a laughing at him kind of way, in a he just told a joke kind of way. But they took that and they said they went viral on the internet that he said, "My name is Joe Biden. I work for the government and the Senate." So they just spread these like viral things of things he didn't say. And that just feeds into this right-wing perception that he's losing his goddamn mind. But again, they have to lie about it. That's not what he said. He said, I work for the governor and the senator. He was making a joke.
And he does, right? He's an officer of like the United States. Donald Trump, just for the record, you are in fact an officer of the United States. And you do in fact serve the people of the United States, among whom would be the senators and the governor.
Right.
That's
just that self-deprecating humor that Biden has that I think people again, it's the opposite of Trump, where Trump's the greatest and everything he does is perfect, and he is, his whole shtick is that he's the greatest thing that's ever happened. Biden actually can be self-deprecating and and have a sense of humor about himself in a way that Trump can't.
Yep.
So
I know it. I just again, I don't know how people take him seriously.
So we did have. So Vivek dropped out immediately after Iowa endorsed Trump. No surprise there. Vivek was kind of being a proxy for Trump anyway. Probably wants to be vice president. I think Trump's going to pick a woman. I don't think Vivek is on the short list for VP.
Like Elise Stefanik, I think, or Carrie Lake. It's one of those two, right?
I think Carrie Lake's out of the running. I think Carrie Lake has made it pretty clear that she wants to be a senator. So Carrie Lake's kind of off the list too. I think right now it's Kristi Noem or Elise Stefanik they're kind of at the top there.
Two terrible options.
Number one.
P.S.
Yeah, they're terrible. Vivek endorsing Trump. Tim Scott endorsing Trump, despite the fact that he's from South Carolina, Nikki Haley's state, and like. What was it? Haley made him governor or something like that. Like, or, I don't know. She gave him. Tim Scott worked for Nikki Haley at some point or something like that.
Maybe she like appointed him to an empty seat and then he won re-election. I don't really know. I don't know his backstory, to be fair. But
who cares about Tim Scott? But anyway, he endorsed.
But that would make more sense to me because I can't imagine South Carolina otherwise electing black because that is
So I think Vivek's just going to be sort of a. At this point, Vivek is just going to be a Trump's hype man. He's going to go on tour with him. He's going to introduce him. I don't think he's going to be. He's not. Maybe what's scary? He might have a role in the cabinet or something like that. I don't know.
Oh my God! God help us all.
We start thinking about like cabinet stuff.
Yikes!
The European Union. Let's talk a little Europe here real quick.
A little Europe.
I know, get Kathy all excited. So apparently the EU thought that the Iowa victory was huge for Trump too. We had a speech from where's his name here? The Belgian Prime Minister De Croo. Lost his first name here. Belgian Prime Minister De Croo. Anyway, saying that quote, if 2024, this was after Iowa, if 2024 brings us America first again, it will be more than ever Europe on its own. We should, as Europeans, not fear that prospect. We should embrace it by putting Europe on a more solid footing, stronger, more sovereign, more self-reliant. So essentially giving a speech to European Parliament, Europe is prepping for Trump's return in the face of the Russia invasion of Ukraine and potentially attacking Europe and NATO. Europe is fully preparing to lose the United States, and they're giving themselves little pep talks that they can stand alone as Europeans. So that's where they're at, Kathy. And again, that was after Iowa. So again, taking Iowa way too seriously, but still, I mean, it's the idea that it's a bigger thing. It speaks to a bigger issue, which is that Europe is moving on from American leadership, even with Biden. Go ahead.
That is a terrifying prospect to think that a Trump presidency will lose us our European allies.
For sure.
Because that's essentially what he's saying. Like, he is not outright saying that, but he is. He's like, that's a nod to, we need to imagine a world where we're not working with America anymore. He all but says exactly that. You know what I mean? And that is not great because he's right, because Donald Trump would abandon Ukraine. If he abandons Ukraine, then that means Russia takes Ukraine. If Russia takes Ukraine, he's already said next is Poland. He's allied already with Belarus. It's not great. It's not great that they're out loud saying that. It's also probably something we should pay attention to, that if Europe is as scared of a Donald Trump second term, like if they're familiar with what we're all saying Donald Trump is, like,
Yeah.
I would take their word for it, especially Belgium, right? They're very frequently the freeway of German aggression. So
Yeah.
I would take a listen a little at the very least, yikes.
It also came out that, they're also circulating this audio of Trump stating in 2020, I guess the meeting at the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2020 got a little heated.
Mhm.
And Trump essentially told the European commissioners that United States would never come to Europe's aid, that we were going to leave NATO, that until they pay up, they owe us like $400 billion or whatever. Basically, Trump promising that in his second term he would quit NATO. So they're circulating that around and just anticipating. They're preparing for a Trump presidency and sort of a post America Europe partnership in the 21st century. And I think what's disappointing about it is that I don't even think Trump has to win. I think that ship has sailed. I think there's no way that they can reasonably, rationally depend on the United States if every 4 years our foreign policy is going to dramatically change. Every 4 years our policy towards NATO is going to dramatically change. I mean, we just go back and forth too much. We're too unreliable. And I just think they've had it. Our allies have had it with us. We're entering a post-US leadership phase on the world stage. And I think this is, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's true, because the just Republicans holding up aid to Ukraine, right? And Republicans in Congress being openly hostile to NATO alliances. Like, you're like, yikes.
It'll just be U.S. and
That's nice.
U.S. will just ally with UK. It's not in the European.
I was going to say that. I'm like, so it's going to be us in the UK who goes through prime ministers like I go through water bottles. Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah. UK economy like on the verge of collapse anyway.
Like, seriously, like now I'm like legitimately stressed.
What's interesting is that this week or last week, Viktor Orban, who Hungary is in the European Union and apparently has veto power, because Viktor Orban vetoed a 50 billion euro aid package to Ukraine in December. Okay, it was in December. Viktor Orban vetoed the EU aid package to Ukraine. So Viktor Orban, Trump's just favorite European autocrat there, clearly allied with Vladimir Putin's boy in Europe, vetoing European aid to Ukraine. Trump has repeatedly cited Orban as an example of strong leadership in Europe. So I think you are going to see, like, again, so, if Trump wins, you have basically Europe becomes Putin, Orban allied with Trump against the European Union, against NATO. They're working on workarounds for Hungary and Orban to get that to basically they're simultaneously trying to kiss Orban's ass, but also trying to take away Hungary's veto power in the EU. But
like, truthfully, that explains a lot about the reason Europe is acting a little bit zany, right? So if US can't be counted on for European security anymore, Britain has already left the European Union, Russia's hostility has increased toward Ukraine, right? Europe is surrounded right now by potential hostility. You know what I mean? Like, which would explain why they're a little bit pussyfooting around Israel right now. Because if they abandon Israel, who's already increasingly tense, like, who's to say Israel doesn't turn on them? They do, in fact, have a lot of weapons after 80 years of our help. Oh boy. I feel like I have to just go on an international relations deep dive to either put my mind at ease or secure up my passport.
Yeah, it's hard to get those passports, right?
Yeah, seriously.
But it's just, it's sad. I mean, it's just we've lost our, and maybe it's a good thing though. I'm still under the, I've still taken the position in the last couple decades that America just needs to just get our shit together, stop being a world player, focus inward a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Get our shit together.
I just don't want it to be, fucking Vladimir Putin that takes our place.
In this Cruz speech, he talked about, for America, and it's about Ukraine aid is about a geopolitical policy. For Europe, Ukraine aid is existential. Like for them, they have to stop Putin in Russia. Otherwise, it is literally like another Hitler marching all over Europe for them.
Like it sounds terrible when we refer to Ukraine as the buffer zone between Eastern Europe and Russian aggression, but they are in fact the buffer zone between Russian aggression and Eastern Europe, and which is why they want NATO membership, because that's a more comfortable position than being a buffer state. Oh boy, I'm sufficiently stressed.
I want to. So just on that again, back to the Iowa stuff and all this. It is not assured that Trump will win. Europe is taking a lot off of Trump's rise. I think I think they are. I think they are right to prepare, but we also have a lot of pessimism in the United States about Trump coming back to office. Nothing's guaranteed. It's January. The election may as well be 10 years from now. There's so much that can happen between now and November. Polling right now means absolutely nothing. Incumbent presidents are always unpopular at this point. Right before the election, Obama was unpopular, but at this point, before the election, so it's not assured that Trump's going to win. Not to mention all the legal shit over the next few months that Trump might be in jail. That polling is still holding that he loses about half of his support if he's in jail.
Yeah, and remember, like Biden hasn't really started campaigning. Like the stop in North Carolina, like that's kind of the beginning of him running for reelection. He announced it, but he's not campaigning. You're not seeing him do things yet. And I feel like once that starts, once people start seeing them, a Trump clip, a Biden clip, the mental acuity question, that'll clear itself up pretty quick. Which one's losing their marbles? That'll be pretty clear,
Yeah. So I just think, you can't really like look at the daily polling and glean anything from that. Yeah, but you're right. Biden hasn't even really started campaigning yet. Yeah. But also, what's better is to look at the results of recent elections in terms of trends. And again, there was no red wave. You have victories for abortion rights in Kansas and Ohio and Kentucky. There might be another one in Florida coming. So you have Democrats mobilized. You have the anti-Trump coalition is still mobilized. That's playing out in recent elections. You have Gen Z mobilized. The Israel stuff's going to be a factor with Gen Z. It will, but I still don't think that Gen Z is going to tolerate a Trump victory. So you still have that incredible Gen Z block that stopped the red wave. So yeah, I mean, it's just the pessimism is a little bit forced. It's a little bit fake. It's a little bit for views and ratings and people just love to be pessimistic. Pessimism sells, like defeat.
Yeah, it does. And it's born out of real anxiety. Like there's no doubt people are like legitimately scared, but like fear can get away from you. And it's when fear gets away from you that you're susceptible to the kind of hysteria that has like swept the MAGA movement. Like that was all manipulated fear. So it's like, I want to pull people back to the earth a little bit. Like I'm flippantly saying like, oh, I'm scared now, but like, I'm also not. Like fear should make you want to learn more, not want to run away, not to like be dismissive and like, oh, it's over, it's done. Right. Like it's not. It's rational to be concerned. It's rational to have these fears, but it's not rational to let those fears make you quit, make you give up, right? Like, because once you do that, those fears become realities,
Right.
So my little
the worst possible thing would just be to let that pessimism run away and people just give up.
Exactly.
And then it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This idea that there's nothing that Trump's going to win. There's nothing we can do about it. Again, based off of what? Off of Iowa? Off of 56,000 votes in Iowa? Half of a 15% turnout. Like, come on. Trump has never won a popular vote. He's never had a majority approval rating. He's already lost to Biden. He's one of the most unpopular figures in American history. His base is loud. He has a very small base that's shrinking, and they're very, very loud. And as they shrink, as the smaller they get, the louder they get.
That is like what I always do try to remind people of. I'm like, it's not that he has a lot of support. He has very energetic support. And that's probably why he won by such a big margin in Iowa, because the weather was terrible. You had to really want to show up to vote. So the people that were there were the ones that really love him and the ones that really hate him.
Yeah,
So there
yeah, I
weren't,
guess that's true.
and hate, yeah, and hate is a motivator, but it's not as big of a motivator, right? Which is why more people showed up for him than showed up against him.
Right. Well,
So
but again, so you have 50% Trump, 50% someone else. The someone else people
mhm,
are going to there's still multiple someone else's. So, if if DeSantis drops out and it's Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley's going to get a sizable
yeah,
chunk of that. Well, Trump and Haley will split that remaining 50. But Trump needs to be getting all of those people. He can't have
yeah,
it's gonna be the election is too close. He cannot be having a huge
mhm,
chunk of the Republican movement not ready to back him. And by all indicators, I think
exactly.
the Haley coalition is pretty set against Trump. They may even switch over to Biden at some point.
Yeah.
So,
I
or just not vote.
I could
Yeah.
actually see the Haley, just like I said, Chris Christie, I wouldn't put it past him endorsing Biden. If it happened, it's gonna be like in fucking October, right? It's gonna be like a do or die, like, please,
Hmm.
for the love of God, listen to me kind of moment. But I could honestly see the same happening with Haley, because she's
Yeah.
sufficiently terrified of Donald. Like, she worked for him. She
Hmm.
knows better than anybody there. Her and Christie know how devastating a Donald Trump second term will be. And I feel like if it came down to it, come the end, I could see them both. I could see them both potentially reluctantly. It would be like the wishiest, washiest endorsement speech you'll ever hear. Like, in in dire times, like, they'll make all kinds of excuses for why they're doing it against their own will, but you know what I mean, like, save democracy, vote against your I don't know, but you get it, like, ugh.
Weird thought just popped into my head. What if
Uh-oh.
Haley drops out, endorses Biden, Kamala steps down, and Haley becomes on the Biden ticket as like a unity ticket? I don't think that's
Mm,
likely, but that thought just popped in my
I
head.
don't think it's likely, but it, in theory, could work. I don't know. Again, I don't think likely, but at this point, I don't think a lot of things are likely. Like, anything could happen at this point. Anything could happen.
I think Haley's sort of juggling what she's going to do next thing in her head right now, and
Yeah.
it's based on with Haley. It's all about her career. It doesn't. Her
Mhm.
convictions are not going to come into play one way or the other. Because I
Yeah.
don't think she has strong convictions. To be honest with you, I think she's just a politician. Um,
100%.
but she's weighing out the next step. Does she double down on the anti-Trump to the point where when she inevitably has to drop out, she continues that and endorses Biden and just accepts the fact that MAGA hates her and becomes this sort of independent voice for the non-Trump conservative? Or does she fold and back Trump and just kind of come back into the MAGA sphere? So I think she's sort of playing that out as her potential next steps. I still think the only possible chance that she wins is if Trump is in jail, like actually wins.
Yeah.
I don't think that she has any chance of beating Trump if he's not if he's not just unavailable. So
Um, yeah. My real, like, half morbid curiosity, half dire concern is, like, let's say he is convicted of a felony. Let's say he is serving time in jail and also is the Republican nominee for president. And potentially what actually, I want, like, logistically to know, like, what it
right,
looks like for the president to be in jail and how we would,
yeah,
with a straight face on the global stage, say that we are the country to whom everybody should look to for guidance and prosperity when our president is a convicted felon serving time in literal prison. How exactly will we reconcile that is what I would like to know. Like,
I don't think anyone
like,
knows. I don't think the Secret
yeah,
Service
like,
knows. I don't.
part of me wants to see that movie, right? Like, I'll
Oh
watch
yeah.
that movie, but the part of me that would have to, like, live through it marching to the gulags, morbidly scared, morbidly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Uh,
fun. I hate everything.
Speaking of that, why don't we go into some SCOTUS news with Kathy?
Oh,
Woo!
woo! All right. So, I'll do a quick intro here, but we're actually going to release, like, the mini deep dive version of this later as a separate episode. Um, But there's big news in SCOTUS world. So everybody is distracted with Iowa caucuses and tiny Ds and
Big caucuses and
dementia-ridden
tiny Ds.
ex-presidents. Yeah, big caucuses and tiny Ds, right? But low key over in SCOTUS land is a really, really, really important case that they're ruling on that could change a very, very important regulatory policy that is going to give the judicial branch a lot of power that we shouldn't want them to have. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so the Supreme Court is hearing a case. It's been argued and they're going to rule on it because, you know, judicial opinions come out in June. So June 2024, we will hear the opinion. The case is Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raymundo. And it is basically like the details of the case are kind of less important unless you really care about them. But the concern is, will this case overturn something called the Chevron doctrine, which was established. It was 40 years ago. It was Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council. So if you could guess, it was the 1980s and an oil company going up against a natural resource company. So see if we can guess what this one's about. 1984, the heart of the Reagan administration. And essentially, it is what gave federal agencies the authority to put experts in charge of interpreting legislation. So say Congress passes a law with respect to like the Clean Water Act, right? Certain like different things need to be done to ensure protection for waterways, streams, estuaries, those things, right? At present, that would go to the Department of Interior, and they would find literal environmental experts to interpret the language of that law and say, wow, based on the science that we know, this is the best way to interpret and enforce these laws, right? That would make sense. Chevron was arguing that they should be in charge of that because only the courts are allowed to interpret laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
right.
Here's why this is fascinating to me. Because one, this is going to remove experts from the scenario, right? And it's going to allow judges to interpret laws. And we're all familiar with how paid off and corrupt judges are. So essentially, this will create a situation wherein now those bought and paid for judges will be tasked with interpreting the language of federal legislation as to how to enforce it. So a judge could very easily take a law designed to protect water rights and just interpret it very loosely, saying that all that means is that companies have to provide that, but they can do that in-house. So then the company would be responsible for hiring the person that makes sure they're in line with federal agencies, taking the power away from regulatory agencies, right? So basically, SCOTUS is in the situation right now where they will be allowing companies to police themselves in enforcing federal laws that are designed to protect consumers and communities. They are going to overturn the Supreme Court case that requires oil companies to not flippantly dump oil in the waterways. Right?
Wow.
This case was Chevron. Remember the Chevron oil spill back then? This is the court case that put the federal government in charge of industries that are known for polluting. Remember like Aaron Brockovich movie, PG&E, how they poisoned the waters? The reason that they could do that is because they were in charge of their own data reporting on their environmental impacts, and there were no federal agencies to regulate it. So basically, the company can pay off some state official to sign up on their paperwork. And now, if this court case goes through, all they need is a judge to be okay with whatever. So you see the corruption playing in. So
that's insane. And this court is not friendly to the environment at all.
Right. So they're going to argue. So the reason that the court thinks that they can do this, their rationale on the conservative side of this is that allowing federal agencies to interpret legislation violates the separation of powers, right? The judicial branch is meant to interpret laws, not the executive branch. So allowing bureaucratic agencies to interpret legislation is essentially giving them judicial power. So that's the conservative argument, right?
Right.
And that's stripping the court of their constitutional authority. Here's the irony. Are we ready for Cannon's irony on this one?
Cannon's irony file?
The concept of judicial review is actually not in the Constitution. Okay. And we know that this Supreme Court is all very strict constructionist. It needs to say it specifically in the Constitution. Otherwise, blah, blah, blah. It's not really there. They're ready to take away the 14th fucking amendment because it wasn't in the original Constitution. That's
you don't have a right to an abortion. They didn't write the word abortion in the Constitution.
Right. But Marbury Madison is where judicial review comes from. Judicial review isn't in the Constitution. And judicial review is what gives the court the ability to oversee and interpret laws written by Congress to determine their constitutionality, not to determine their enforcement, to determine their constitutionality.
All the gives judges the right to strike down laws.
Right. All they can do is say this is a yay or a nay. Like famously, the Supreme Court told Andrew Jackson he couldn't remove native tribes from Georgia. He fucking did it anyway because the court doesn't have any executive authority. So all the judicial review should give them to do is like, here's the law by Congress. The executive branch could go and say, this is our interpretation of it, and they could up or down it, right? But that would require a lawsuit. They don't want the executive branch to have any say. They want it to go from Congress to the court for the court to say, yep, that law's fine. Interpret it as you see fit, Chevron. Keep the water clean, thumbs fucking up, right?
Chevron, Chevron knows what's best for water quality and shit.
So the foundation of this function is based on an opinion of the courts, okay? Not a constitutional provision. So they are saying that the precedent is judicial review, that gave them exclusive authority to interpret what the laws of Congress. Therefore, allowing federal agencies will strip them of their power. But you know what the Constitution does say is that Congress has the right to limit the jurisdiction of the courts through legislation, arguably by passing a law to enforce this. So a bypass here, and this is what I wish Democrats would get really good at with messaging, right, is that it's called jurisdiction stripping, where Congress can pass a law and says this specific thing will not fall under the jurisdiction of the courts. This will be regulated by Congress. So if the court is overturning this rule where agencies interpret these things, a law of Congress could put it back in place. So depending on how they write the opinion is going to be really important here, because if they write the opinion that, only the courts should have this kind of authority and no other agency under any circumstances, and that's the fear, right? If they just say that, the court case was ruled properly, but it requires legislation by Congress to be enforced, like the executive taking this power by themselves is not okay. That's fine. We can work with that, right? We can work with that. We can pass the law. It's fine. But if they write it that executive agencies have no right whatsoever to interpret, because that's an exclusive right of the Supreme Court, that's going to be a bigger issue and will make my head explode, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say that. And they're basing that on a power given to them that's not in the Constitution. And that makes my head want to explode. Like,
Jesus,
I literally
that's a mind fuck right there. Holy hell.
Like my head starts like right here. I got a headache in saying this, right in this spot right here, which we all know. The tension headache. I got a tension headache just explaining this.
Cannon's head's going to explode live on air for our subscribers.
Well, yeah, like, because this is really bad. Like, if you're giving imagine if Clarence Thomas is the go-to on how a law gets to be enforced, right? Like, we pass a law protecting the environment, and it's a Clarence Thomas up or down to what those words in that law mean. We're fucked, man. We're fucked.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrifying.
So the wording of the opinion on that one is going to be close to watch. Like, it's been argued, like whatever, that's done. So, yeah, I'm waiting for that one.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be a big one. That's in June. That's going to be a June decision.
June 2024. So they just finished up hearing details of the case.
Okay.
This week, or maybe they're wrapping up in the early part of next week. But yeah, that's the one I'm paranoid and fascinated with, because yeah.
So there's that one.
The only good thing to come out of the Reagan era is about to go away.
There's that one. There's the abortion pill ruling.
Mifepristone. Mm-hmm.
So there's those two. What's the other one? Isn't there another big one this year too?
Maybe.
This court's just deciding on like the function of our entire society.
Yeah, it's super comforting to know that. But again, I'll point to the midterm elections could fix that, because we can also change I got a question on TikTok, like, why haven't they just changed the size of the court? I'm like, because you need a Congress to do that.
Because Congress has to do that.
A Congress.
They can do it, but they need Congress to do it.
Yeah, you need Congress to do it. So I
Which
want to
means you
go
need
Trump
Democrats.
now.
You need to elect Democrats to Congress. That's
Yeah,
what you want to
yeah. So yeah, that
do.
was my 10-minute
Awesome.
spiel on why SCOTUS is about to fuck us again.
That should be a regular series. Like, how did
How's
SCOTUS
SCOTUS
fuck us
fucking
this
us
week?
today? Yeah, basically.
One position.
Yeah,
SCOTUS fucking us.
but it's missionary because those conservatives.
Totally missionary with those guys. Oh, holy hell.
Can you imagine? That's got to be. No wonder they're so grouchy. They nothing but vanilla sex. Woof.
Images in my head.
Clarence
Thank
Thomas
you.
and
So this
Timmy.
was a fun mini deep dive. Kathy, thank you for that one.
Yeah.
This is a little mini deep dive. So this is for the general public. If you want to see more of this kind of content, these like deep dive content stuff where Kathy actually goes into like cases and histories, and we talk about their impact on our society and on the world, subscribe. Head on over to Patreon. $5 a month. You get access to the full deep dives, which are much, much longer than what we just did. Whole episode type things. So yeah, head on over and do that. Patreon.com/justbuylesscoffee. This was kind of a free preview of our deep dives. We'll do these every once in a while to whet your appetite, as they say, as the kids say. If you want to see the video content, if you want to see the video content of the regular episodes, go to YouTube, check out the Just Buy Less Coffee YouTube channel. The video content for the bonus deep dives and all that subscriber only is on Patreon. The regular shows are on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio only, make sure you're clicking that download button. Download numbers are how we're ranked with other news and political podcasts. We'd like to be in the top 100 if possible. We can get there with your support. Thank you so much to our subscribers. Thank you so much to our listeners. We love everybody. We will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue and Kathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X. All opinions are our own.